Okay, well, I'm putting this screencast together a day after Keenum to Diggs for, what was it, 65-yard miracle touchdown. So if I stumble over my words, it's because I'm still utterly and completely in shock. Sorry to all the Saints fans out there. You already have a Super Bowl, and you daggered my team in 2009, and I'm just now getting over it. So, purpose of this screencast is Newcomers line graph activity. There's going to be two screencasts for this. The first one's going to explain the actual creation of the graph. The second one is the follow-up and processing. This one is just for the creation of the graph. You're going to be creating a graph that looks a lot like this. It's going to be on large graph poster paper. And this is Oregon populations, so it's not Minnesota, but the story is very similar. You're going to have a graph where on this side you're going to have population numbers. Down here you're going to have dates. And then much like Oregon, right around the 1840s, 1850s, the number of non-native population or white population skyrockets, and the story is from about 1800 all the way into the 1900s, the number of native population decreases. And then this has a key right here, and it's labeled across the top. I would like to see some labels here. What the heck's this? This should be population, this should be years. But this is a good example to come back to see how it's designed. In addition to this screencast, this presentation will also be in Google Classroom, so you can come back and look at this. We'll come back to this graph a lot as I explain the project, so I can point out things to make it crystal clear and give you examples. Okay, so showing population changes over time. You are very familiar with this scale of how I grade things. 6 is exceeds expectations. 5 is yes, you got it all the time. 4 is almost, you're almost there, you know, kind of 90%, 80, 87%-ish, B plus range there. 3, kind of, now you're in the C range, it's almost there. Yeah, you're doing the work, but there is room for improvement. 2, not really, less than half the time. 1 is you're missing something significant. You gave it an attempt, but it's still not there. 0 is you're missing it entirely. So expectations, each one is 5 points. It will total 30 points when all is said and done. First of all, you need a key. So create a key where the Dakota, Ojibwe, and settlers are represented by a different color. When I go back to this example, here is the key, and you will have settlers, Dakota, and Ojibwe, and each one has its own color. This one uses, dotted lines or dashes and then a straight consistent line. You're going to use colors instead for yours. But here's the key. You could also have the key down here. You could have it up here. They decided to put it here just because it doesn't interfere with the graph. You can do it how you want with your group. Horizontal line, that is the line that runs east to west, which is the direction my cursor is going. It's along the bottom of the graph, and it needs to be labeled years. And then you're going to have 1850, 1851, 1852, all the way up to 1865. You have to have all these different years on your graph. So, going back to this example, this one goes from 1805 all the way up to 1841. You're not doing that. You're starting your graph at 1850, and then you're going to go each year up until you get to 1865. So it's going to take a little bit of math work to make sure you have everything evenly spaced across the bottom. And of course, yours needs to be labeled years. Vertical line is the one that runs north-south. It's along the left side of the line graph. It needs to be labeled population. And then you start at 0, and then you're going up to 25,000 people, 50,000 people, 75,000 people, all the way up to 200,000. So you're going up by increments of 25,000. If I go back to this graph, starts at 0. This one goes up by 10,000. Yours is going up by 25,000. And it should be labeled population on the side. Lines on the graph have to match the color in the key. Seems pretty obvious, right? But you need to be careful to make sure you do this. So what that means is whatever colors you give the non-native population, the Dakota and Ojibwe, the lines that you're using need to match the lines that are actually on the graph, so it's really clear. Materials. Your teacher's going to give you poster paper. It's that large graph poster paper. You can cut that up to make it smaller. You can leave the entire piece of poster paper with extra space hanging off. It's kind of up to you. You'll see some past examples of what students have done. Pencil. Do everything in pencil first. Do not touch it with a marker until you've got it completed in pencil. Your teacher's taking a look at it and says, okay, this makes sense to me. You can go forward with using markers. You're going to use 4 markers. 1 marker, brown or black or blue, to do the base work, so creating the graph itself and writing down the numbers. And then 3 colors, like a yellow, an orange, or a red, that stand out, that will be for the Dakota, Ojibwe, and settlers. And then use rulers when you're creating lines so things are neat. Aesthetics, that means what things look like. This needs to be very neat and clear. It's a graph, it's a line graph. It needs to be as clear as writing so that anybody looking at it can understand exactly what it says. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 points right there using this scale. And these are the criteria that you need to go by. All right, showing population changes over time. Groups will be assigned by your teacher. I've put them together in advance. Time frame, you have until Friday, the end of class, 1/19/18, to get this line graph done. Some will go all the way up to that time. Some will finish early. And then it's out of 30 points, and this will go into your presentation grade, which is about 5% overall of your end of the semester grade, but this 30 points will be a significant part of that 5%. So this, along with Washington, D.C. reports, will make that up. So you want to do a good job on this. And here is the data that's going to help you actually apply points on your graph. So I give you Dakota population numbers in 1850 is 6,000. In 1860, it went up to 7,000. But then by 1865, there's a significant decrease. So you're plotting these points on the graph. So going back to the graph, the points that you plot here on the actual graph space where the years and population meet, that's what you're plotting for Dakota. It's that, was it 6,000, 7,000, and around 370 or something. There we go, 6,000 to 7,000 to 374. Ojibwe numbers. In 1850, there were 4,500 Ojibwe. In 1860, the population went up to 7,500. In 1865, there was still 7,500. So notice the difference here between Dakota and Ojibwe numbers. Something significant happened where the Dakota population dropped. And then here is white numbers. In 1850, 5,000. So right there with the Dakota and Ojibwe, kind of right in between the numbers in 1850. Wow, by 1860, a significant increase in population. And then here's a reminder again of what the horizontal lines need to look like and the vertical line and what it needs to be, how they need to be labeled. This might be the screen you're going to look at most when you're plotting your points on your graph. And these are approximations. They're according to a census that was done at the time when Minnesota was a territory and then later a state. So these are pretty accurate numbers according to that census. And I double checked them with 2 sources and ballparked them to see where they kind of meet each other. Okay, as you can see, then we move into a journal activity. This is for processing afterwards. So I have explained the project to you. You can come back to the screencast and watch it again, or you can actually just look at this presentation in order to help build your graph. And after looking through it again, this is the main screen you're going to want to focus on in order to plot your points and to create your graph. All right, good luck.